Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Before we dive into today's chilling narrative, a quick favor. If you're new here or if you've been enjoying our content, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Truly helps us bring more captivating stories like this one to you. Your support means the world. Now, dim the lights, perhaps grab a warm drink, and prepare yourselves. Because tonight, we're delving into a story so dark, so unsettling, it ripped through the fabric of American society, leaving a scar that still resonates. This isn't just a tale. It's a journey into the heart of a nightmare, a chronicle of fear, and the relentless pursuit of justice. What you're about to hear is a fictional account, but one crafted to feel disturbingly real. Are you ready? Let's begin. The oppressive August heat of California hung heavy over the small, picturesque town of Serenity Creek, a place whose name now mocked its inhabitants. It was a town of manicured lawns, two-car garages, and dreams woven into white picket fences. Until August 12, 2007. The call came in just after midnight, a frantic, almost inaudible shriek from a woman who gave her address on Willow Lane before the line went dead. Officer David Miller, a 10-year veteran with a receding hairline and a perpetually weary sigh, was the first on the scene. The house, a charming two-story colonial, stood silent, its windows dark. A single porch light cast long, dancing shadows of leaves onto the lawn. David's hand instinctively went to his sidearm as he approached the front door, which stood ajar, a sliver of darkness beckoning. The air inside was thick, not just with the summer humidity, but with something else, a metallic tang, faint but unmistakable. Blood. David's flashlight beam cut through the gloom, painting a chaotic picture. Furniture overturned, a shattered vase on the floor, and a trail of crimson leading deeper into the house. He called for backup, his voice tight, the usual easygoing rhythm gone. What David found in the living room would forever be etched into his memory, a tableau of unimaginable horror. Dr. Alan Peterson, a respected local surgeon, lay sprawled on the Persian rug, his chest a bloody mess, eyes wide and unseeing, fixed on the ceiling. His wife, Sarah, a vibrant elementary school teacher, was slumped against a grand piano, her face contorted in a final, silent scream. Their teenage daughter, Emily, was found upstairs in her bedroom, a scene of a struggle, her young life extinguished with a brutality that defied comprehension. This wasn't a robbery gone wrong. Nothing of value seemed to be missing. This was personal. This was rage. The Serenity Creek Police Department, a small force accustomed to petty theft and neighborhood disputes, was immediately overwhelmed. Detectives Laura Hayes, sharp-witted and relentless, and her partner, Mark Jensen, a grizzled veteran with a sixth sense for darkness, were assigned to the case. Laura, with her piercing blue eyes and an uncanny ability to connect disparate pieces of information, took the lead. Mark, with his quiet intensity and a lifetime of witnessing humanity's worst, provided the necessary grounding. 3 victims, no forced entry, no obvious motive, Laura stated at the initial briefing, her voice calm despite the storm brewing inside her. The brutality suggests a crime of passion, but the lack of connection between the victims and the absence of any history of conflict for the Petersons contradicts that. The crime scene yielded few clues. A single, smudged fingerprint on a glass, too incomplete to be useful. A faint, almost imperceptible footprint in the flowerbed outside, belonging to a brand of tactical boot not commonly worn in Serenity Creek. And a chilling detail. Each victim had a small, intricately carved wooden bird placed on their chest. A swallow, a robin, and a sparrow. Each bird was a different species, meticulously crafted, almost beautiful in its macabre context. What's with the birds? Mark grumbled, running a hand through his thinning hair. Some kind of signature? Or a message? Laura mused, staring at the crime scene photos. But what message? The murders sent a shockwave not just through Serenity Creek, but across the nation. The Peterson family was the epitome of the American dream, and their brutal slaying in the sanctity of their home ignited a primal fear in everyone. News channels ran constant updates, speculating on motives, calling for justice. The quiet town was suddenly swarming with media vans, forensic teams, and FBI agents. The serenity was gone, replaced by a pervasive sense of dread. 2 weeks later, as the initial shock began to morph into a simmering anxiety, another family was targeted. This time, in the affluent coastal town of Santa Monica, over 300 miles south. The Miller family, Robert, a successful tech executive, Carol, a beloved kindergarten teacher, and their twin 10-year-old boys, Ethan and Owen, were found dead in their luxurious oceanfront home. The scene was eerily similar. No forced entry, extreme violence, and the chilling signature of the wooden birds. A hummingbird, a blue jay, and 2 finches, one for each twin. The similarities were too striking to be a coincidence. The same methodical brutality, the same absence of robbery, and most unnervingly, the same distinctive wooden birds. A serial killer was loose, operating with a chilling precision, moving silently through the sprawling California landscape, leaving a trail of devastation and an escalating sense of terror. The FBI officially took over, establishing a multi-agency task force. Agent Thomas Harding, a seasoned profiler known for his uncanny ability to get inside the minds of killers, was assigned to lead the investigation. Harding was a man of quiet intensity, his gaze analytical, always searching for the unseen threads that connected the gruesome acts. He saw patterns where others saw chaos, and he knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the bone, that they were dealing with a meticulously intelligent and profoundly disturbed individual. "This isn't random," Harding declared in his first meeting with the task force, his voice low but authoritative. "The victims are all successful, prominent families, white, middle to upper class. No prior connection to each other or any known criminal element. The modus operandi is consistent. This individual is targeting families, not individuals." "And the birds?" Laura pressed, her eyes locking with Harding's. "What do they mean?" Harding paused, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. "The birds are a signature, yes, but they're also a symbol, a message, something deeply personal to the killer. The different species for each victim. It suggests a symbolic categorization, perhaps reflecting the role each person played in their family or in the killer's perception of them. The public, gripped by fear, dubbed the perpetrator the Chimera Killer, a monstrous entity, composite of various animals, a fitting name for a killer whose motives seemed as twisted and unnatural as the mythical beast. Parents held their children closer, doors were locked tighter, and every shadow seemed to hide a lurking menace. The fear was palpable, suffocating. Back in Serenity Creek, David Miller, still haunted by the images from Willow Lane, found himself constantly checking his own home's locks, glancing over his shoulder. The town that had once been synonymous with peace was now a crucible of suspicion and terror. Laura, poring over the case files late into the night, felt the weight of the victims' lives pressing down on her. 3 families, 9 lives extinguished. Each family was meticulously researched, every detail scrutinized, every possible connection explored and discarded. There was no link, no shared past, no common enemy that could explain this level of targeted, cold-blooded violence. Yet there had to be something tying these seemingly disparate families together, something that spoke to the killer, something that ignited this inferno of destruction. The wooden birds, she thought again, the only consistent, tangible link. What was it about these birds? What secrets did they hold? As the days bled into weeks, the Chimera Killer remained an elusive phantom, and the quiet whisper of dread in California grew into a deafening roar. The hunt was on, but the predator seemed to be one step, perhaps even many steps, ahead. The shadow of the Chimera Killer stretched long and cold across California. The initial panic had solidified into a grim reality. An intelligent, meticulous predator was hunting families, and the authorities, despite their best efforts, seemed powerless to stop him. After the Santa Monica massacre, a third family, the Chengs, a prominent Asian American family in San Jose, met the same horrific fate 2 weeks later. This time, a family of 4. Michael, a venture capitalist, Susan, a university professor, and their 2 daughters, aged 7 and 14. For more wooden birds, an owl, a dove, and 2 hummingbirds lay on their chests, silent witnesses to an unspeakable act. The pattern was undeniable, yet maddeningly elusive. 3 families, 3 distinct regions of California, all affluent, all seemingly unconnected. The psychological toll on the task force was immense. Laura Hayes, typically unshakable, found herself snatching mere hours of sleep, her dreams haunted by the vacant stares of the victims. Mark Jensen's usual cynicism had given way to a quiet, simmering frustration. Agent Harding, while maintaining a composed exterior, could feel the weight of public expectation and the growing fear that they were chasing a ghost. "He's escalating," Harding stated at a tense morning briefing, the dark circles under his eyes betraying his exhaustion. "The frequency is increasing. Serenity Creek, then Santa Monica 2 weeks later, then San Jose 2 weeks after that. If the pattern holds, we have roughly a week and a half before he strikes again." The pressure to identify the common thread became almost unbearable. Forensic teams had meticulously scoured all 3 crime scenes, but the killer left little behind. No usable DNA, no clear fingerprints, no witness accounts. The tactical boot print from Serenity Creek was too common a brand to narrow down, and even that was just a single, faint impression. "What about the birds, Agent Harding?" Laura interjected, her voice sharp with exhaustion. "We've had sculptors, woodcarvers, even ornithologists look at them. They're handmade, incredibly detailed, but the wood is common, and the style isn't unique enough to pinpoint a maker." Harding nodded slowly. "We've cross-referenced every known database, every artisan. Nothing. What we do know is that these aren't mass-produced. He's either making them himself or commissioning them from someone who has no idea their work is being used in this way." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the grim faces in the room. "But the fact he places them on each victim carefully chosen is key. It's a ritualistic element. He's not just killing. He's sending a message, or perhaps fulfilling a personal ceremony." The task force shifted focus, pouring resources into a deeper dive into the victims' lives. They built detailed profiles of the Peterson, Miller, and Chung families. Every business associate, every social connection, every past dispute, every online footprint was meticulously scrutinized. This was where the first, faint thread began to unravel. Detective Mark Jensen, sifting through hundreds of financial records for the Chung family, noticed a peculiar entry. A significant investment in a relatively unknown tech startup called Viridian Solutions, made 5 years prior. It wasn't unusual for a venture capitalist, but what caught his eye was a similar, though smaller, investment by Robert Miller, the tech executive from Santa Monica, in the very same company around the same time. "Hey, Laura," Mark called out, his voice cutting through the hum of the bullpen. "Check this out. Miller and Chung both invested in Viridian Solutions. Ever heard of it?" Laura walked over, her brow furrowed. "Viridian Solutions? Sounds familiar. Wait, isn't that the company that went bust about 2 years ago? Some kind of innovative data security firm that got caught up in a massive scandal about intellectual property theft." Harding, who had been listening from a nearby desk, immediately walked over. "Intellectual property theft? Tell me more." A quick search confirmed Laura's recollection. Viridian Solutions had been founded by a brilliant but volatile young programmer named Marcus Thorne. The company had initially soared, attracting significant investment, including from the likes of Robert Miller and Michael Chung. However, a bitter legal battle erupted when Thorne accused his former business partner, a man named Jeremy Hayes, no relation to Laura, of stealing proprietary code, leading to a countersuit accusing Thorne of fraudulent business practices and exaggerating his technology's capabilities. The scandal had been ugly, public, and ultimately, Viridian Solutions collapsed, leaving its investors with significant losses and its founder, Marcus Thorne, utterly ruined and publicly disgraced. "So, 2 of our victims lost money in this Viridian Solutions fiasco," Mark summarized, a glimmer of excitement in his eyes. "What about the Petersons?" A rapid search of Dr. Alan Peterson's financial records revealed no direct investment in Viridian Solutions. The initial hope deflated slightly. "Damn it," Mark muttered. "So much for our common link." But Laura's mind was racing. Wait, Dr. Peterson was a surgeon, right? High profile. Did Viridian Solutions have any connections to the medical field, maybe in data security for hospitals? Further digging revealed that Viridian Solutions had, in fact, been pitching a revolutionary data encryption system specifically designed for patient records to several major hospitals in California. While Dr. Peterson wasn't an investor, his name appeared on an advisory board for St. Jude's Hospital, one of the hospitals Viridian Solutions had been actively pursuing as a client. The contract had ultimately fallen through, with St. Jude citing concerns regarding the integrity of Viridian's technology, concerns that directly mirrored the allegations made during the intellectual property scandal. He wasn't an investor, but he was connected, Laura stated, a growing sense of revelation dawning on her. He was part of the decision-making process at St. Jude's that ultimately rejected Viridian Solutions system. That would have been a massive blow for Thorne, coming from a respected figure like Peterson. Harding's eyes narrowed. So all three families, in some way, contributed to the downfall or financial ruin of Marcus Thorne and Viridian Solutions. Miller and Chung as investors who lost capital, and Peterson as an influential figure who likely contributed to a critical contract falling through, further cementing the company's bad reputation. A chill ran through the room. The common thread had been found, not in a direct personal connection, but in a shared, devastating impact on one man's life. Marcus Thorne. "Let's get everything we can on Marcus Thorne," Harding commanded, his voice sharp with renewed urgency. His current whereabouts, his history, his psychological profile. Everything. Marcus Thorne's profile painted a picture of a man who had once been on the cusp of greatness, a Silicon Valley prodigy with a brilliant mind, whose ambition had been crushed under the weight of scandal and accusations. After the collapse of Viridian Solutions, Thorne had spiraled. He lost his home, his reputation, and according to public records, had a brief, public breakdown documented by local news outlets at the time. He had become reclusive, disappearing from the public eye. His last known address was a small, rented apartment in Oakland, but he hadn't been seen there for months. He was consumed by Viridian Solutions, a former colleague told investigators, his voice tinged with pity. He genuinely believed in his technology, believed he was wronged. The betrayal, it broke him. He talked about justice, about how those who profited from his downfall or contributed to it would pay. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was terrifying. A brilliant mind, twisted by perceived injustice, meticulously planning his revenge. The targeted families, the symbolic birds, they were all part of a grand, chilling design. "The birds," Laura whispered, looking at a photo of Marcus Thorne's cluttered home office, a picture from years ago before his downfall. In the background, on a shelf, stood a collection of meticulously carved wooden birds. Her breath hitched. He collects them. He carves them. The revelation sent a jolt of energy through the weary task force. They finally had a face, a name, and a motive. Marcus Thorne, the scorned genius, was the Chimera Killer. But knowing who he was and finding him were two different things. Thorne was intelligent, resourceful, and had been operating undetected for months. He was aware of the investigation, aware they were closing in. He was a ghost and the clock was ticking. They had less than a week and a half before the next family, chosen with the same cold, calculating precision, would be marked for death. The hunt for Marcus Thorne, the Chimera Killer, intensified, becoming a desperate race against time. The echoes of his dark vengeance were growing louder, threatening to consume another innocent family. The identification of Marcus Thorne as the Chimera Killer ignited a frantic, statewide manhunt, unparalleled in California's recent history. His image, once that of a promising tech visionary gracing industry magazines, was now plastered across every news channel, transformed into the chilling, gaunt face of a ruthless, vengeful murderer. The clock was ticking, a relentless countdown to the next potential atrocity, a constant, gnawing pressure on every member of the task force. Agent Harding, Laura Hayes, and Mark Jensen led the charge, their every waking moment consumed by the agonizing pursuit, driven by a mixture of professional duty and personal despair. Thorne is methodical to a fault, Harding reiterated in a terse, late-night meeting, his voice raw from lack of sleep, his eyes scanning a wall covered in maps, victim photos, and red string connecting disparate locations. He's not just striking randomly within the 2-week window. There's a pattern to his targets, but also to his movements, his preparation. He's deliberately choosing affluent, somewhat isolated homes, often with a unique architectural feature or a commanding view, perhaps a sense of elevated status that he resents. He's casing them, planning his entry and exit with meticulous precision, leaving almost no trace. He's a ghost, and he knows how to stay one. The task force threw every available resource into tracking Thorne. His past associates, many of whom now expressed a chilling understanding of his escalating paranoia, were re-interviewed, their every recollection scrutinized. His financial trails, once complex and extensive, were meticulously followed, most of which led to dead ends, Thorne having systematically liquidated his remaining assets years ago, living off the grid with a chilling forethought. His online presence was virtually non-existent, a ghost in the very digital realm he once commanded, a stark contrast to his former life. It was clear he had meticulously planned his disappearance and his subsequent campaign of terror long before his first strike in Serenity Creek. Laura, still fixated on the symbolic weight of the wooden birds, pushed for a deeper psychological analysis of Thorne. Why the birds? It's not just a calling card. It's deeply symbolic. He's telling a story with them, a twisted narrative of judgment and righteousness. We need to understand that story, truly understand his warped perspective, to predict his next move. What is his final act going to be? A brilliant criminal psychologist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, brought in by the FBI, meticulously reviewed Thorne's personal history, his public breakdown, his former brilliance, and the horrifying details of the murders. He sees himself as a victim of profound injustice, a modern-day martyr for a perceived betrayal. Reed explained, her voice calm but authoritative, resonating with a disturbing clarity. The birds are a metaphor for freedom, perhaps, or a longing for an idealized past, or even a symbolic judgment against those who he believes clipped his wings. Each species has a specific, well-known meaning. Swallows for hope and return, robins for new beginnings, sparrows for humility, doves for peace, owls for wisdom, kingfishers for prosperity. He's assigning these traits or their perceived absence to his victims. He's not just killing them. He's judging them, symbolically stripping them of these qualities he believes they don't deserve or, more chillingly, that they took from him. The final bird, the one he hasn't placed yet, will be the key to his ultimate message. The psychological analysis, while profoundly insightful, offered little in the way of immediate actionable intelligence for Thorne's current location. The pressure on the task force mounted, the media's relentless scrutiny intensified, and the public's fear reached a fever pitch. Every news cycle brought fresh condemnations of law enforcement's inability to capture the Chimera killer. Then, a break. A seemingly insignificant detail, unearthed by a diligent junior analyst sifting through thousands of hours of grainy CCTV footage from gas stations, convenience stores, and highway cameras. A blurry, almost indistinct image from a gas station camera in a remote part of Sonoma County, captured 3 days after the San Jose murders. It showed a figure, heavily disguised with a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses, but with a gait and lean build eerily similar to Thorne's, purchasing gas for a beat-up, dark blue pickup truck. The truck wasn't registered to Thorne. A quick check revealed it had been reported stolen months ago from a small, isolated town far from his known haunts, another layer of his meticulous planning. The location, Sonoma County, was a new geographical area for Thorne, but it fit the established pattern of affluent, somewhat isolated communities, often home to wealthy tech and investment figures. The task force descended on the region, narrowing down potential targets based on Thorne's precise profile. Families connected to the tech or medical industries, successful with a comfortable social standing, and crucially, some past, however tenuous, connection to the Viridian Solutions scandal or the wider tech investment community that might have implicitly benefited from Thorne's downfall. Among the narrowed list, One family stood out with chilling clarity. The Davies family. Arthur, a retired venture capitalist who had chaired several influential tech boards, and Eleanor, a renowned abstract artist. Arthur Davies had been a particularly vocal critic of Viridian Solutions in the media during its spectacular collapse, lambasting Thorne's business practices as fraudulent and naive, directly contributing to his public disgrace. He fit the psychological profile perfectly. Their expansive vineyard estate, tucked away in the rolling hills of Sonoma, was isolated, with multiple potential entry points and panoramic views, an ideal stage for Thorne's final act. "This is it," Harding declared, his fingers slamming down on the Davies estate on a detailed topographical map, his voice ringing with a mix of grim certainty and adrenaline. "He's targeting them. This is the fourth family. This is his final judgment. We move in tonight. Every available unit, perimeter secured. We will not let him slip away again." Under the cover of a moonless, starless night, a heavily armed tactical unit, led by Harding, Laura, and Mark, converged on the Davies estate. The air was thick with tension, charged with the gravity of their mission, the culmination of months of relentless, agonizing pursuit. They knew Thorne was dangerous, intelligent, and now likely desperate and at his most volatile. This wouldn't be a simple arrest. It would be a confrontation with a deeply disturbed, cornered mind. As they breached the perimeter, moving with the trained silence of seasoned professionals, a profound sense of eerie calm hung over the property. No barking dogs, no lights suddenly flicking on, no alarms. The house, a sprawling modern marvel of glass and stone, was utterly dark, its vast windows reflecting the inky blackness. Laura, her hand on her weapon, felt a prickle of acute unease. Too quiet, far too quiet for an active crime scene. "Spread out, secure the ground floor," Harding ordered into his comms, his voice a low, gravelly growl that cut through the silence. "Be advised, Thorne is armed, extremely dangerous, and highly intelligent. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary, but be prepared for anything. He may be waiting." They moved silently through the opulent living spaces, their flashlights cutting swathes through the darkness, illuminating priceless art and designer furniture. Mark cleared the expansive kitchen, his beam sweeping across sleek granite countertops, revealing nothing but pristine order. Laura entered the cavernous study, its floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with leather-bound books and gleaming awards, a testament to Arthur Davies' long, successful, and publicly lauded career. Then she saw it. On the large, polished mahogany desk, sitting prominently, almost defiantly, was a single, intricately carved wooden kingfisher. Its vibrant, almost jewel-like colors seemed to mock the darkness of the room, an almost unnatural splash of life in a place of death. It was untouched, pristine, clearly placed there with deliberate intent, not dropped in a struggle. And beside it, partially obscured by the bird, was a small, elegantly handwritten note, addressed chillingly to the hunters. "You're too late. The cycle is complete." The judge